All right, let's do caps and the attorneys. Plaintiff will be Mr. Zell, Z-E-L-L. Defense will be Mr. Archer, A-R-C-H-E-R. And caps, we have Officer Javert, J-A-V-E-R-T. Santa Cruz. And I think that's it. Maybe Cliff and Eagle, their streets. All right, so we'll turn these on. All right, we'll go ahead and identify for the tape, please.
Okay.
Again.
I'll be plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Zell, Z-E-L-L.
I am the witness.
I am the court.
I am defense attorney Mr. Archer, A-R-C-H-E-R.
All right, and this is our 164 voice on 511,
Line 10, right?
line 10.
Okay, starts with me. Ready? At the time of your arrest, your wife was what? About 10 days away from having a baby?
About that, she had it on the 21st.
You were very concerned about her and didn't want your child to be born with her in jail?
That's right.
You had a discussion with Officer Javert at the police department?
Yes.
Before any discussion about the case, he advised you of certain rights that you had?
Yes.
And you understood him when he was talking to you about your rights?
Yes, sir.
You even went so far as to sign a card indicating that you understood what your rights were, right?
Correct.
Then you proceeded to talk to him about burglaries that you had committed, correct?
Well, he asked me some questions about some other burglaries.
But you talked to him about them?
He answered his questions. He said,
Well, he said he was questioned.
But the main reason that you did that was that you were concerned about your wife and that he had told you that she would be released, and furthermore, he had told you that you could see her before she was released and before you went to jail. Is that right?
And also,
Just answer the question.
yes.
You told Officer Javert during the course of your discussion that you were on probation out at Santa Cruz, didn't you?
Yes.
And you told him you had escaped from a drug house there?
Yes.
You told him that as soon as you escaped from the drug house that you embarked upon a series of burglaries and that you had been committing crimes since getting out?
I don't recall saying that.
You did tell him that the judge told you you'd go to the joint if you violated your probation, correct?
Yes.
Officer Javert let you see your wife for about 5 minutes before you went to jail, didn't he?
No, he let me see her before we went on the drive.
But he did let you see her, as he promised he would.
That was one of his promises that he did keep.
She was released, wasn't she? And your child was not born in jail?
Yeah.
During the taped interview, Detective Javert asked you specifically what he had promised you. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
What did you say when he asked you what he had promised you?
I don't recall word for word.
You told him, quote, "You promised me to let me see my old lady before I left here, to take you to places that I took you to, all that I've hit," unquote, right?
If that's what it says.
Then after the taped interview, you drove around with Detective Javert and showed him certain places that you'd burglarized, right?
Right.
And at that time, your wife was out of custody.
I don't know if she was or not.
During the time that you were in the car with him, driving around looking at places, he was taking notes as to certain things you told him.
He wasn't. Well, he did a few times.
At that time, you had some discussion with Officer Javert about clearing paper, is that right?
That was the second time, yes.
You knew that at the time you were arrested for this alleged attempted burglary, that in all likelihood you would be going to prison, didn't you?
More or less. I had been in contact with the halfway house and they were willing to take me back if my probation officer would allow it.
What did the judge tell you?
Well, it wasn't in the judge's hands at this time. My probation officer hadn't pled a warrant for my arrest yet.
But the judge told you that you'd be going to prison, didn't he?
If I came back before him,
Uh-huh, thank you. Nothing further.
Any redirect?
When you were talking to Jabbert that morning, you were aware that burglary is a felony?
correct.
And I take it you had some idea of the penalties, having been through an initial sentencing hearing, of what the sentence was on first-degree, nighttime, residential burglary?
Yes.
Referring to questions 47 and 48, would you review that? Have you had a chance to look at that?
Yes.
When you were asked by Detective Jabbert whether anyone had threatened you or promised anything in return for this statement you made on tape, how did you respond?
I told him they had promised to let me see my old lady before I left, to take you to places that I took you to, all that I've hit.
They made other promises to you as well?
They did before the taping,
Why didn't you bring that up at that moment?
because the word is concerned, and I wanted to see my old lady right then and there. All right. Did you stop this? And then we'll get ready for the 140.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?